Hello everyone, Wenzeltron here, and we're back on Heroes of the Storm. And as you can see, we're doing a Johanna build guide today. And the reason I'm bringing up Johanna is because she's one of the most stable frontliners in the entire game. And after the most recent changes for most frontliners was receiving the loss of armor, Johanna was the most heavily hit, initially at least, with the loss of about 10% effective HP. Since then, she has now seen a 7% increase in max HP. I'm at level 20 right now, so I'm at about 5,921, but that doesn't count her Iron Skin trait in there as well as a few talents that we'll talk about later. But Johanna, a lot of people said she was dead, and she has very low playmaking ability, but the Mid Season Brawl says otherwise. She was the probably second most contested tank toward the end of the series, and that being the case, she provides utility that most of the other popular tanks really don't have, and one of them being lane clear. She's very consistent lane clear as a frontline hero, coupling that with Blaze as your offlaner, or even a Dahaka, and you have a really solid frontline that is almost impossible to kill. So in today's video, what I'm going to do is we're going to look at her basic abilities, because I used to think she was one of the least interactive tanks in the entire Heroes of the Storm roster, but she does synergize really well with a lot of the mages in the game, and she does have the probably most stable use cases because she's kind of safe pick. That's kind of what I used to always view her as a safe hero, but now I think you can try, from a skilled perspective, you can abuse her trait, her Iron Skin, and just her kit in general to really just set up your team to win. Whereas other tanks, it's kind of depend on you. Like, one of those is Diablo. Diablo used to be a flashy playmaking tank, and since his rework, his place has shifted, and he doesn't feel nowhere near as oppressive as he used to be, which I think is a win, but at the same time, it's more like Diablo doesn't feel like he can carry the game anymore as much, whereas Johanna is like the setup tank. She kind of is like there for you, almost like ETC, but I would say ETC is the pinnacle of setup tanks because he is Moshpit. So with that, everyone, we're going to go into her basic kit first, and then we're going to go into the talents, and then I'll pick the build that I use most. So, as always, I'm going to start with, or at least like I like to do, is start with her trait, because that makes what Johanna, or any hero, as unique as they are. So, her trait is Iron Skin with a 20-second cooldown, and it provides a 1,478 absorb shield for 4 seconds, and you become unstoppable. So the biggest thing about this is the unstoppable part. And it's a hefty shield amount as well, and it synergizes with one of her talents that we'll go over in a little bit. And basically this means it's like Heroes Against Garrosh, or even Diablo, where you're going to get flipped over into the enemy team. You can just be like, we'll go over here by these turrets, and we're going to be like, oh no, we got thrown into tower range, and obviously I'm level 20, so I'm not going to take any damage. But basically, you can just pop it and then walk away, and we can't be CC'd by the enemy team anymore. And that was just a wasted cooldown from Garrosh, when he should have been gone for someone more susceptible to being killed. A lot of playing with Johanna is basically working around her trait. And now we'll go to her E ability, which is called Shield Glare. And on the surface, this ability is not very interactive. It's just a blind for 1.5 seconds. It does very little damage. But the idea here is that you want to be able to hit as many targets as possible, because that blind is huge, especially in the meta where you have Tracer, who's super prominent in the meta, and her basically most of her damage outside of her ultimate Pulse Bomb is all auto attacks. So if you can blind that target consistently, it just totally negates everything she wants to do to your enemy team. So regardless of whether or not if she's diving past you, which she could do pretty easily, you can basically protect your team from anything. It's a very it takes some more game knowledge to use it properly than most abilities in the game. Next is her W, which is called Condemn, which is, I would call Johanna's probably signature move outside of Iron Skin. So after a 1 second delay, you'll pull in enemies near you, and they will take a little bit of damage. But the important thing here, and a slight stun, is that for hitting minions, it does 200% damage, and for me, this goes right in her Q, which is just a 180-degree melee swing of her mace, like you saw there, with a 60% slow. It helps you lane clear extremely efficiently. And what that means is you can basically go in, condemn a target, and then press your Q, and that usually gets most of the wave down, maybe one more auto attack in the lower levels, but at level 20, you can clear waves on your own quite well. But not only that, is if you're running in 3-man as the frontliner, if you have someone like Chromie or Kel'Thas, you can group up an entire minion wave, and then they're dead. And you're right there, and it's just like really fast rotations, especially for games like Tomb of the Spider Queen. I highly recommend just finding any of the HGC matches where you see Johanna be played, because they do this extremely well. And you just kind of lead your team and just clear waves rapidly, out-rotating the enemy, which is part of the reason I think Johanna's seen such a resurgence, because other tanks, Garrosh for example, has very, very little wave clear. So with that, we're going to get into talent time. Alrighty everybody, level 1 here. So we have Reinforced at level 1, which is her version of the block, and it was buffed when she lost her armor, so now you get 75 basic armor, or physical armor, from 2 charges, which is 75% reduction from basic attacks. There's still room for this talent. I don't know, like, probably against teams with Greymane or any slow attacking heroes. Against Tracer, it's garbage, because she will use it up so fast. It's going to basically have 0 uptime, and it's not going to matter, because her auto attacks are so weak, too, that it's not going to absorb enough damage for it to be useful enough. Hold Your Ground is a trait increase, so you get more shield, so it's 30% increase, and it reduces the cooldown by 4 seconds. Baseline is 20, so you get 16 seconds off. This can be useful if their team has lots of burst, but the last talent here, Laws of Hope, with a 40-second cooldown, will heal you for 30% of your max HP for 4 seconds. It also increases your passive regen by 3.2 at level 20. So Laws of Hope is for sure the go-to. The reason being is that because of the loss of armor and the max HP increase, this talent gets a indirect buff. Well, it's a direct buff. And that means you can now activate this heal to just absorb a crazy amount of damage. I think it's almost 3 regen globes worth. So right there, that's 30% of HP at level 20. That's pretty crazy. And then you can couple that healing effect at very low HP with your Iron Skin, so you're not taking any damage at all. Pop your heal, and you're healing even more. And then on top of that, you get a even larger regen increase at level. My regen of health is 15.5 per second at level 20. And now for level 4, there is another buff to Eternal Retaliation. So you get a lower cooldown by 0.5 seconds, and refunds 2.5 mana for every enemy hit for a maximum of 10 targets. This is a buff to wave clear, and before it would mean you're wasting a lot of mana spamming your condemns out over and over again, but now the mana return has been buffed a little bit, so it's basically net neutral. So you don't lose any extra mana by getting the multiple condemn hits on a large stack of targets. And then Conviction at level 20, or Conviction is the next talent, sorry, which is a movement speed increase by 25% while charging up your condemn. And last here is Sins Exposed. So Shield Glare marks your target for 4 seconds, and then the next ally will be damaged. So this talent, to me, is about being able to apply your Shield Glare on as many enemies as possible, which you want to be doing regardless, and then it'll help your team be able to provide that much more burst damage to the enemy, because as long as anyone hits them, they'll do more damage. This also helps your lane clear. Conviction, would be your go-to pick if you had a more backline heavy team, and it allows you to have a soft engage on a target, because Johanna's movement speed is pretty slow compared to most other tanks, and she doesn't have a hard engage like a power slide or even a blaze charge or anything like that. So if you're going for a simplistic build, you're going to go for Conviction, but if you want to go for bursty, you can do Sins Exposed as well. Level 7, we have Subdue. So this talent here is probably her most rewarding talent in her entire tree, but it's the hardest one to complete. Yes. It is hitting 2 or more heroes at the same time will increase the slow to 80%. And the slow amount does not decay, which is insane. So it will just last there for the duration, for 2 seconds. It's a very, very strong slow. And the quest here is that if you hit 4 or more heroes at the same time with Punish, your Punish will always slow the target for 80%. So this means the enemy team has to be clumped up so much that you can just hit a massive Q and then you complete this quest, and then you always slow for 80%. I've got this in a few games, and it's really punishing. Not to be pun or anything like that, but it's really, really powerful. If you notice their enemy team is very clumpy, if they have like an ETC or a double frontliner with like a Sonya who's going to be aggressive, then you can go this talent. Next is Zealous Glare, which is increase the blind duration of shield glare by 0.5 seconds. And then Johanna's basic attack to the hero with shield glare will extend this duration by 1 second up to a maximum of 3 seconds. So as I was mentioning before, this helps counter all the auto attack heroes in the game. Because even if you're not attacking them, having an additional 0.5 seconds, which means this is a 2-second blind, just causes them that much issue. For me, this really comes into effect on maps like BOE, Battlefield Tourney, where you're going to be doing immortal damage, but Johanna's not going to be doing a damage. She's better off going to defend, and most of the time you're going to have characters like Zul'jin or Greymane or Tracer that are going to, or even Hanzo, that are going to be doing all the immortal damage. Hanzo's a little bit different because he does a lot of his ability damage, but same theory applies here. You're going to want to blind those targets and cause them to do less damage per second. And then last but not least, which is my go-to pick in the tier, if you're not comfortable completing the quest or you don't need extra blinds, you go Blessed Momentum, which is the battle momentum, but it reduces basic cooldowns by 0.5 seconds. And it's just the most consistent because she does have quite long cooldowns at 8, 10, and 12 seconds respectively on her abilities. So it's just helpful there to have the ability to use more abilities. I don't really find Johanna mana intensive, so you really aren't losing out on this, whereas like other heroes like Tyrael are quite mana hungry.
Choose a talent.
And last but not, or we're here at 20. So Falling Sword, it did get buffed, it does more damage, it does have a slowing element, but it just takes too long, and it's telegraphed. I don't see it, like, yes, it works, but it's just not great. It's good for an escape and stuff like that, or an engage from like the shadows. But your go-to here is going to be Blessed Shield. Blessed Shield is basically the Captain America shield. It will do 250 damage and stun the first enemy hit for 1.5 seconds, and then bounce two more nearby allies and stunning them for 0.5 or 0.75 seconds. So the real power here is that if you have your enemy team and you know that you have the ultimate, you can basically get really fast snap picks because the skill shot in this is quite long, and you're able to set yourself up to do a Blessed Shield and then condemn, punish, and then that should, as long as you're coordinated enough with your team, they should be there to be able to drop all the cooldowns on that target you've picked out. It's also very useful because it only has a 60-second cooldown. So you're able to really maximize the effectiveness of this talent, and then almost every fight it'll be available. It's also long enough so that you can use it to interrupt spells like Mosh Pit, or even channels such as Chromie Bye Bye, or you could even use it, that's also, her W can be used for that as well if you're close enough. Or even I'm trying to think of other ones, Ravenous Spirit, any sort of channeled ability, Riptire or Rocket Ride can work as well. At level 13, this tier is defined by how will you do more damage in an AoE setting. So Punish will increase damage by its Q for 25%, and then this bonus is increased to 150% when you hit 2 or more heroes. This is a nice talent, but the consistency in which you use it is not as great. Holy Fury is the Burning Rage talent that Johanna gets. So you deal 26 damage per second passively, and then every time you use your W, you will deal 40% more for 5 seconds. That can be consistent, again, on maps that need more consistent wave clear. But I think the best talent here is the Blessed Hammer. Yes, the path here is quite inconsistent, just to show it, because it's more interactive. So when you spawn it, you will spawn one hammer, and then a couple seconds later, you'll spawn another one, and they swirl outwards around you. On the surface, it doesn't look good. But they do a considerable amount of damage. They do 184. But the cool thing here is that the way the cooldown function works is every time you hit in here with your shield glare, you'll get 8 seconds off the cooldown. So we're going to use it, and we're going to go use it on these target dummies. And we almost got another one right there. So 30 seconds off, and then once we wait for the cooldown. So we have 22 seconds right now, and if I hit just 3 heroes, instant cooldown. that is a lot of damage you could be putting out in an AoE setting in the middle of a team fight. If you're just hitting 2 or 3 heroes in a fight, that's very useful. So at 16 here, this is another sustained talent tier, or how would you like to counter the enemy team? So first off, we have Holy Renewal, which is a shield glare talent. So for every hero affected by shield glare, you restore 250 health. This will help if you're trying to if you're facing a team that is very ranged heavy. You're going to have a lot of ways to just try and maximize self-healing here. I don't think this talent really is the ideal way to play Johanna, especially as a 16 talent. 250 health is quite efficient, because if you hit just 3 heroes, you're already at 750, sorry. So it's pretty good. Next is Fanaticism. This increases the duration of Iron Skin by an additional 2 seconds. And while it is active, Johanna gains 8% movement speed each time she takes damage. So if you take damage within 5 seconds, you will be at that max 40%. Baseline, it only lasts 4, so if you get this talent, it's 6. And then if you get the first talent, oh, it doesn't increase the duration there. It just reduces the cooldown. So it'll be a total of 6 seconds long. They have to burst through 1,478 damage. If you go to the level 1 trait talent, then you would pick this one most likely. My go-to here is Imposing Presence. Passively slows attack speed and movement speed by 20% by heroes and summons for 2.5 seconds when you activate it. And then the passive is it slows attack speed by 20% for 2.5 seconds. The reason I use this talent is that it's a 20-second cooldown. It's very short. And just getting a active slow, an additional slow, because like I said, the range on your Q is very small. When you can condemn and then Q, and then the person's right next to you, you pop this and you're good. That is a long time to be slowed. If you time everything right, you have about 4.5 seconds of slowing potential between those abilities, not to mention if you use your stun as an engage tool. That's a lot of lockdown, even if it's soft. In the last tier here, we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time because I think most of you guys know what it is. Indestructible is it's just head and shoulders above all of them. Johanna's already amazingly strong, and she gets the saving grace of this talent. When she loses all of her HP, she gains a shield equal to her maximum HP for 4 seconds, and if the effect is a 120-second cooldown. This is just way too strong. Compared to any of her other talents, it just doesn't make any sense. There is a reason you could go Blinding Light or Blinded by the Light, but Johanna's trying to be the stable frontliner. If she's using that stability to shield her allies for only 25% of their max health, it just doesn't cut it. So we're not going to spend a lot of time there. Alrighty everyone, that's going to do it for this Johanna build guide and playstyle guide. I'm going to put the links for all of this build, as you can see on screen right now. I'll have a link for the Heroes Hearth version of it, just so you guys can have it. And I'd like to know what you guys think about it, and I don't want to hear your honest opinion on why you think Johanna, if you are one of those people that think she is not a good hero. Because if you look at the HGC, especially in the Mid Season Brawl, even though that was the Johanna with armor still, I still think she's really good right now. She has a kit unlike most frontliners. She's stable, she's got wave clear, and she's got a lot of tools at her disposal. And she has a hard CC as well with an ultimate only at a minute cooldown. So, with that everyone, we're going to wrap it up, and I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.